It's beginning to look a lot like the Bitcoin bull season. It's upon us. What was your first clue, Lark? Probably the massive rally that saw the price rally up to almost $100,000 the other day. Analysts, of course, predicting Bitcoin to reach $1 million in a decade. MicroStrategy buying basically every available Satoshi they can get their hands on. You could consider all these mega bull market signs, but there are pretty obvious signs. There's one bullish signal that you probably missed out on and that no one's really talking about, and that is the M2 money supply market signals. So this signal could actually give you a clue of where Bitcoin price is going to go long before it gets there. We want to explore why this is something that you could consider watching, probably should be watching moving forward. We'll cover why this metric matters, its relationship with Bitcoin, and why it could be one of the biggest drivers of crypto markets in the coming months. So let's learn how this underappreciated signal could actually supercharge your crypto portfolio. First things first. You're probably wondering, Lark, what the heck is an M2 money supply thing anyway, man? Well, the money supply that's unless, of course, you have a finance or economics background. For the rest of us mortals out here, M2 refers to the total amount of liquid cash money in circulation out there. So we are talking about real money, physical cash, bank deposits, all non-cash assets that can be converted into cash quickly, stuff like this, okay? There are also related terms like M1 and M3, but M2 is the focus here, and M2 is what gets talked about the most. It's what matters the most because it's what economists actually use to determine the amount of liquidity out there in the economy. Historically, more money, more problems. No, just kidding, of course. But the M2 supply definitely determines the broader market's attitude towards risk. Okay, more money in the system, more risk-on attitudes. So what we mean here is that when M2 is growing, it signifies an expansionary phase in the economy where central banks are reducing interest rates, pumping more money into the economy, often by money printing directly, like you see Japan and China doing currently. When the money printer goes brr, asset prices tend to go up. In such times, inflation also tends to rise. It becomes a bit of a double-edged sword. When inflation rises, assets that are considered to be inflation hedges, like gold or Bitcoin, can also increase in value. But really everything can go up during those periods until it all starts crashing again. You may not have noticed this, but M2 has been increasing recently. It's currently at 21.22 trillion, a 2.6% growth year over year as of September. Now, this growth is very good for Bitcoin, as you may have noticed, and you'll find out more in detail later. Now, it can explain why Bitcoin has been doing well even before Trump won the election. I know what you think, but Lark, Bitcoin was only at $60,000 for you. What are you talking about? Yeah, it's up like only 200% in the last, 18 months or something. Now, let's turn to data to explain why rising M2 is good for Bitcoin. There is a historical correlation between the M2 supply increase and Bitcoin performance. In 2017, the expansion of the M2 supply coincided with Bitcoin's bull run up to $20,000. Similarly, the 2021 bull market, where Bitcoin peaked near $69,000, also just happened to coincide right at the time when the M2 money supply surged because of central bank money printing, of course, due to the pandemic back then. Now, you might be thinking, okay, look, correlation is not causation, man. Let's go back to Econ 101. Yeah, I know. But the Bitcoin bear market in 2022 also happened at a time when the U.S. Federal Reserve and other central banks tightened their monetary policies, leading to a massive M2 contraction where the supply shrunk. And the bottom of the bear market was basically marked by when China announced they're going to start printing money. Yeah, there's a correlation here, guys. So you see, there is a pattern to be paying attention to. And M2 is one of the biggest macroeconomic indicators for you to watch. It's literally the global liquidity, right? Now that M2 is growing again in 2024, we've already seen Bitcoin rising over 100% year to date. But that may just be the beginning. Analysts have predicted that M2 growth could be a multi-year trend, which means increased liquidity flows right across the board into high-risk assets like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I know what you're thinking. Bitcoin's not a high-risk asset. I love my Bitcoin. I love my Bitcoin too, but come on, guys. Crypto's risky as shit. Anyway, now you see why M2 matters for Bitcoin. What can we expect moving forward? Before we dive into that, would you like to win a Lamborghini? How about a Tesla? Maybe a Rolex. Come on, we all need a Tesla or a Rolex, right? Look, MEXC Exchange has one of the most insane prize pools going right now, and winning is actually super simple. Here's what you need to do. Sign up to MEXC Exchange using the link down below. By the way, that link is going to give you an exclusive 20% fee rebate, exclusive only with that link. They already have some of the lowest fees in the market, and that makes it even lower. Then start making futures trades. The more you trade, the more chances that you're going to have to win their daily and weekly USDT prizes. Winners, of course, all chosen fairly. In fact, for the supercars they're giving away, they're going to be using a Bitcoin block hash for max transparency, okay? Now, this is one trading competition you don't want to miss out on. $12 million total prize pool, so act fast. It's a limited time offer, link down below. Okay, back into the big money talk, okay? Now, the higher M2 money supply goes, the less attractive traditional assets start becoming. The more investors will lean towards risk assets like Bitcoin, other assets that have a chance to appreciate during inflationary periods. So don't be surprised if major companies like Apple and Microsoft actually get on board. I mean, Microsoft's literally meeting with Michael Saylor to discuss a Bitcoin strategy. There's nothing that the corporates and suits like more than increasing shareholder value. And if Bitcoin proves to be digital gold, then you can expect every institutional investor and their mom to start piling in. In fact, it's already largely happening. Look at the success of Bitcoin ETFs. Look at the success of MicroStrategy and their Bitcoin strategy. Also, retail investors are currently the biggest participants in the market, whether through direct purchases or buying shares of spot Bitcoin ETFs. We're seeing huge amounts of interest pile in. Now, if M2 keeps rising, retail investors will likely increase their exposure because money becomes easier. It becomes easier to take on debt, borrow versus your house, all that kind of stuff as rates fall, etc. And they may now have, of course, to compete with those institutional traders in the high liquidity environment. In most bull markets, retail participation typically follows institutional inflows, and when this happens, Bitcoin goes through the roof. We can see institutions have been accumulating most of the year. Retail's only now starting to pay big attention. Bitcoin prices have neared $100,000 on that basis, but as you've already heard many analysts say, it's just the beginning. Given that the prediction is for M2 growth until 2026, 2025 could be golden bull run conditions, okay? You could expect Bitcoin to reach historic levels. We've predicted 200K here on the channel, maybe as high as 250K pico top. You'll see lots of other crazy numbers come out, but those are sort of more realistic numbers. At this point, you might be wondering why most people overlook the M2 signal despite its apparent importance to the M2 signal into Bitcoin more broadly. The quick answer is that it doesn't make headlines that much, and it's kind of nerdy stuff that not a lot of people pay attention to. Many people are more fixated on splashier metrics like the current price action or the fact that MicroStrategy is about $5 billion in Bitcoin, which are important stories, right? However, your ability to understand macroeconomic indicators like the M2 can actually make a big difference between you and your success and everybody else, allowing you, of course, to anticipate market moves. And we've been talking about the M2 supply a lot here on the channel for the past year, or even really since the bottom of the bear market when China started printing and the M2 started going up. Okay, that was the initial signal. And look how far we've come since then. A lot of people follow short-term trends and get wrecked, okay? Long-term trends, that's much more important and is a much stronger signal versus the trend, or the signals what's happening in the next 5 minutes, okay? Nevertheless, let's put a caveat here. M2 is not an infallible indicator of where the market is heading. You need to keep that in mind. So M2's growth does not always mean that Bitcoin will rise too. If it was that simple, everyone would simply watch the M2. Obviously, many factors impact the price of Bitcoin, such as industry failures like the FTX collapse, global crypto regulation, geopolitical tensions, all that stuff matters, okay? But the M2 has been a pretty big and important signal. And what makes a good investor is recognizing that these risks could disrupt a bullish scenario and that you need to strategize with that in mind, okay? The core principle in investing is that no single indicator can single-handedly be foolproof or tell you exactly what's gonna happen. So successful investing, of course, requires a mix of understanding all these different things, what's going on in the macro trends, trying to identify those bullish indicators in the market and trying to adequately manage your risk. But considering the impact of an expanding money supply on risk assets, proven here in this video with charts on how the impact goes and the correlation between those, that M2 money supply expansion is not something that I plan on fading. Thanks for watching.